Hello everyone, I am here to show you how I prep for full coverage. I found that I was getting more into full coverage pieces lately and decided that pulling a full skein of DMC for each color that's called for was pretty much a waste of threads. And when I say waste of threads, it's going to take you years. Well, it's going to take me 3 lifetimes to do all of the full coverage that I have. So if I go and pull a whole skein of thread for a color, and what if in the end I only use a half a skein? I could have used that elsewhere during my stitching times, so to speak. So what I've done is I totally revamped the way I kit up my full coverage, and once I figured it out, I went back to my other full coverages that I've already kitted up and had the whole full skein in there and everything, and decided to convert those over to my new genius invention. It's not my invention. I sort of took little bits and pieces here and there from different people that had suggestions, and I made it my own, I guess. But I figured I'd share with you guys. Maybe if especially if you're in outside the US, you pay a lot more for DMC than we do here, and the prices are going up here where it's not as cheap as it used to be. I remember back in the day, remember that 6 for $1? Yeah, not anymore. You're lucky if you can get it on deep discount for 4 for $1 anymore. So that being said, I've decided that no longer will I put a full skein in my full coverage unless I absolutely need to. I know that I can pull the colors as I need them also. That's also an option. So then, because what if I never finish the project? What if I know it's going to take 75 years and I could have used that other, but neither here nor there. I'd rather have the whole kit together, all the colors together, instead of hunting and pecking later on. So what I did was I found from one floss tuber, and she still doesn't realize it where she said it, but Carla from Craft Addict K had talked about using cardboard or thicker stock or comic book board to make project cards. So what I went on to Amazon and I found comic book board. You can get that where you can get them in different packs. I bought a pack of 100, and you can get a pack for probably $13 free shipping if you have Amazon Prime. You can go to a comic book store and buy a pack. There's a few places you can go. So what I did, though, is I went on Amazon. If you go on Amazon and look for backer boards, comic book backer boards, they will give you tons of choices. The ones I bought are the current, apparently, if you're into comic books, there are the current size, and then there's the Silver Age size. So but I just use the current size. It doesn't matter for me. I'm not putting comic books with them. These have a matte finish side, and then they have a shiny side. This is a shiny side, matte finish side. They're pretty sturdy, and I went and I took my cutter and I cut them in half, lengthwise. So two of these would make one full-size board. Then I took a hole punch, and it doesn't have the size on it, but I want to say it's approximately a 1/2 inch. It might technically be 5/8 of an inch. It makes a hole this big, which will fit a whole skein of thread very comfortably. Also, if you do a lot of full coverages, you'll know that most times you only need a couple of lengths of thread, and so that's even more comfortable. So I don't have to make 2 holes. Usually I'll put a hole in the side of my hand-dyed cards to put the pieces that are good enough to keep on using, but they're leftovers, and I put them back on the card that way. This I can just put it next to the larger hank. Anyways, okay, so what I've done here is I've gone and looked at the color list, and I wrote all the numbers on the cards in order that's on the list. And you have to be careful. I mean, Heaven Art Design, Crafting Creations, Creative, Charting Creations, they put theirs in number order, but I found some full coverage that don't put their colors in color order. So I put it in order that it's on the page. It makes it a little bit easier when you're reading the chart to know where it's going to be on here. Put them on in the order on the page, and I number the cards. So if they get out of order, you know where it belongs. Then I also, because this is going to be a new kit for me, I put the name of the project on each card. Look at my chicken scratch. So the name of the project is on each card, just in case it gets orphaned somewhere on the table. I know where it goes. After I do that, I go and get my chart. This chart is available on my StitchNButton group. I found it through a friend when I was on Virtual Stitcher. She sent it to me. Not quite sure where she got it. I don't remember the original source of it, but I just know it's available. I put it on, I only have a photo of it, so I went and put it on my group page so you can find it. Basically, this tells you how many strands of floss will get you how many stitches. Okay, so each skein comes 6 strands. This goes by the count of fabric you're going to use, up to 40 count. How many strands you're going to use when you're stitching. On this particular one, I will be using 1 strand over 1 thread on 25 count. So what I need to do is I go down the 1 strand and I go to 25 count, which is backwards for me, so it's right here. This says I'm going to get 6,375 stitches for 1 skein of DMC using 1 strand, 1 over 1 on 25 count. I then sort of made my own chart. Now, I need to tell you, it depends on how you cut your DMC. So what I'm telling you is according to how I cut my DMC. I take each skein, I take the end and I pull the whole entire thing out. I just stretch it out and I plop it on top of each other, and then I go and I put end to end. I cut at the center, put those 4 ends together, cut at the center, put those 8 ends together, and cut at the center. It gives me 8 6-strand pieces that are approximately 34 inches. Or 38 inches. 38 inches. That being said, because I'm only using 1 strand, I will cut it yet again when I'm kitting, because I'll use a 19-inch piece. So, knowing how long my lengths are when I cut them, I know how many stitches I should approximately get. So for a 38-inch piece, which I'll have 8 lengths of, it's going to be approximately 790 stitches. For 19, it's going to be double that at 395. Yeah, that's right. Looking at it backwards, it seems like totally different numbers. Once I know the fabric I'm using, how many strands I'm using, and I have my numbers here, I then use the usage chart that comes with a lot of the full coverage. If your full coverage doesn't have it, this isn't going to work for you so well. But it tells you how many stitches are of each color should be used in your particular chart. If you're going to not use the whole entire chart. Obviously, these numbers are going to skew for you. So this, I'm showing you this, assuming you're doing the whole entire chart. You're using the colors that are listed here, and you need help. I need help. It's, bear with me, it's kind of hard to explain what goes on in my head. It really is, and it's slightly scary. So, for instance, now, normally I save I save my paper and I don't print it out like this. I use my iPad that I'm using for filming right now, and I'll just bring up the PDF and use that, but I wanted to be able to show you. There's a helicopter. Okay, so for this number, the first number on the list is 152, and it has 467 full stitches on it. What I'll do is I'll figure out, I know that my 19-inch piece is going to be 395 stitches, so I would prefer to put a whole 38-inch strand on there. I'll cut it in half again before I use it, but that's going to give me 790 stitches. That's going to give me extra for carrying over, for cutting off, for ending and starting a thread. So I would personally use one 38-inch, and I would cut that off, put that on this card right at 152, right? For the next number, 154, it uses 4,700 stitches, 4,781 to be exact. I know that the full stitch count for a full skein on 25 count 1/1 is 6375. So depending, I might just put a whole skein on there just to be on the safe side. Otherwise, technically, I can get away with probably 6 of the 8 38-inch strands and put them on there. In this case, I probably would just put the whole skein on because it's just easier that way. Let's see. The next one says 893. Well, 893 is slightly more than 138-inch strand. So in that case, I might put 2 38-inch strands or 1 38-inch strand and 19-inch strand, because that would give me a few hundred more stitches than what's called for. I hope this makes sense to you. Now, and I say 19-inch strands because there's stuff like this. There's 47 stitches of this color. That would warrant me just pulling off one 6-inch piece that's 19 inches and throwing it on there. And then there's some that take, this says it takes 5 skeins, which I know it's not going to be 5 for me. It's half of that because I'm only using one strand. So this has 13,902. I would need about 2.5 skeins. So what I'd do is I'd put one full skein on my card and then put the other 2 skeins in a baggie. And I always have a baggie with these that say extras. Or if I'm going to write on it, it'd be extras. Otherwise, I just know that those skeins are there for when I finally need them on this piece. Some of them have 4 skeins on here, which would be 2 for me. So I'd put the one skein on my card. The other skein would go in the bag. And that's about it. I'm looking to see. I've seen where there's like 5 stitches of one before. On Hades, they have that a lot more. It doesn't look like there's anything less than that 47 though on this one. So that's good. Anyway, that's how I do mine once I get them all done. And I didn't pull out. Let's see. Okay. This one I recently kitted up and started. This is my Wizard Vase from Heaven Art Design. I am doing this one 1/1 on 25 count. That's how far I've gotten. And before I started, I went along and I pulled all the flosses. Now I like that the 19-inch lengths. If it's a 38-inch length, I usually cut it in half before I put it on here, because then it doesn't get so tangled. And when I did this, I was on my iPad and I wrote down how many I needed of each. Okay, that's upside down. Here we go. That might work. Say I needed 3 38 inches, 5 19-inch pieces, like that. And I wrote it on there. And then I just went and pulled out my DMC and cut it off and put it on each card. And I believe I have all the colors for this one. I do. See what I did here? I ended up using a piece off of this in my colors. So this is the full 6-inch strand. This one has 5 strands on it left. Oh, I'm a little bit right of left, aren't I? Or left of center. Or I'm trying to think of where I'm at. Anyway, and I put this one on the hole next to the one it needed to be. See that? It should be here. That's not a problem. I'll figure it out when I get there, but there was a little piece I could use, and I put it next to it. But that's what I mean by when you're using it, to put it next to the main hank. And I think, yeah, I'm pretty good about putting it to the right of the main stock, so to speak. So, once it's all kitted up, it looks pretty like this. You see, Aqua City's got all the blues. That's nice. Seeing all those colors together, it's a whole rainbow. Anyway, as always, if you have any questions, if I totally did not make sense and you're confused and drooling on yourself, you may need to seek mental counsel. That's okay. Just let me know if you need any help, if you need further assistance, if you have questions, if I rambled on and forgot to mention something. It doesn't matter. Just comment below with any questions or suggestions. Maybe you have a better idea than I do. Don't know. I know mine's not the best, but it works for me, and that's what it is with these crafts. You just have to figure out what works best for you. Hopefully it's helpful. Again, the hole punches, Michael's or Joann's or Hobby Lobby or wherever you get your craft stuff, wherever there's paper crafts, you can get those punches. And I do recommend the larger hole punch. It's using just a paper hole punch is so small and it's a pain. So the larger ones are better. I don't have my hole punch out. I get approximately 13 holes on each card. With this, you can put holes on both sides. I know somebody put smaller holes over here for the ones she's using, so if she were to pick out 152, she'd use it, and if she had leftovers, she would put it on this side instead of putting it next to it in the same hole. On my hole punch, I sort of made a mark, so I know where to start, and then you can't always tell where the hole is going to be, so I made a mark on mine so I know to line it up on the side of this hole. So it'll be close enough together like that. And that is all trial and error. I'm sure there is a science technically to it, but that's trial and error like this one. Too close together, so it's got one color on it. I used a Sharpie marker on mine. I wouldn't consider this really reusable unless you want to scribble it out and put it on. I know that people have printed out the whole symbol and everything bigger and taped them on. That could work. I just wrote it out with a Sharpie marker though. I guess having the symbol in there would also help. This works fine for me because of this symbol shows and the color shows. I use Pattern Keeper. That's another thing. I use Pattern Keeper now on my full coverage, so it's easier just to put the numbers on there because it's what's showing up on my Pattern Keeper anyway. Hopefully this helped. If you need further assistance on how to figure out how many stitches you can get on out of a strand, how to figure that out with this key, message me. I'll try to explain how I do it. I wrote it out once I figured it out, I wrote it down for me for several different counts. I have 2 here for 18 count because there's 1 strand. There's 2 strands. With 18 count, it's probably better to do it with 2 strands. 1 strand's okay, but it's better coverage with 2 strands. 25 count. I know people use 2 strands. I'm good with 1. 28 count, if it's over 1, I do 1 strand. Over 2 strands. 22 count, I would do 1 strand also, but that's me, and that's another thing where it's trial and error. What do you like? Do you need it definitely full coverage? Is it bulking up too much and you can't do 2 strands? It doesn't feel comfortable. So play in the corner. You could use the corner of the fabric half the time. You have a 3-inch, 3-inch border anyway. So there's a whole 2-inch square, 3-inch square in the corner where you can test out whether you want to use 1 or 2 stitches, strands over 1 or 2. So I hope this helped. Any questions or comments, definitely leave them below. And if I can come up with any other, hey, I found a way to make this a little bit easier for me, maybe it'll help you, I will make another video. If you have any suggestions for that, definitely, hit me up and let me know. And my group is StitchNButton on Facebook. If you just go to look under Facebook groups for Stitch, the letter N button, all one word, you should be able to find it, and that chart is going to be on there. And I hope everybody's having a great day. Thank you.